welcome in to the PFF NFL betting show for week 8. On the desk with me, Ben Linsey, joining us remotely, Judah Fort Gang. I'm your host, Mason Cameron. Boys, it's already off to a good start. We're almost 8 weeks into the season. You know, I was just saying time sure flies when you're having fun. Unless you were a Minnesota bettor last night, like I was in some cases there. So it was a tough matchup. Minnesota drops 10 to the Chargers 37. LA covers -3.5. The over at 44.5. Minnesota just couldn't get anything going. Herbert diced up Brian Flores' defense. Ben, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, honestly, the most interesting part of that game might have been the Al Michaels classic shtick at the end with the over, which did come through on the Cameron Dicker field goal. Now, I honestly thought the Vikings would be a little bit more competitive. I was pretty heavy on Justin Herbert passing overs, Keenan Allen reception overs, and just absolutely no reason not to have Tucker Fisk and Scott Matlock on the field in that second half and to just run down Minnesota's throat. Right? The Vikings didn't push him at all. Herbert had 191 passing yards in the first half. Keenan Allen had 4 catches on 18 offensive snaps. I did not think his snap count was going to be that much lower than any other game he's played this year. But yeah, it was an impressive game for the Chargers offensively. It seemed like everything was working, and we've seen the 2023 game when Herbert played Flores, big passing game, a lot higher passing volume. But when teams are blitzing him and they don't get home, Herbert is going to find the open guy. And we've seen that through his numbers the past year and a half. When they do get home, he can create with his legs. We saw that last night too. So I think as this Chargers team starts to get more healthy, and you started to see that last night with Joe Alt and Trey Pipkins coming back at tackle, and when they get some of their running backs back, Omarion Hampton back, like this could be closer to the team we saw the first couple weeks where we're like, yeah, they're a legit team in the AFC.
Yeah, you know, and it was something that I talked about when we were breaking down the Thursday night betting preview, was just that, you know, this team had really struggled, or the Chargers had really struggled stopping the run, like to a massive degree. A ton of huge performances from backs. So I was actually big on Jordan Mason to have a big day. And, you know, the Vikings just altogether could not run the ball. They abandoned the run very, very quickly. And that really just set them up for failure where, you know, they had to throw a bunch to Carson Wentz and, you know, put a bunch on his plate. And, you know, we can have the conversation that's all over social media about J.J. McCarthy's health after, you know, hurdling over a guy on the sideline there. But, you know, I guess that's something that we'll see next week if it was warranted that, you know, he be in the game or not. So that's going to definitely be something. Judah, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, Minnesota's offensive line is a problem. Not that Carson Wentz was helping him out by holding onto the ball for too long. But I think there also clearly needs to be some kind of prior adjustment on Kevin O'Connell and just this general offense, certainly even with the way Sam Darnold has played in Seattle. But this is not just like a plug and play kind of system, I think, where you're going to get a ton of production and be a great offense like they were last year. The J.J. McCarthy stuff, like, look, we didn't need J.J. McCarthy hurtling anyone on the sidelines to tell us that J.J. McCarthy was not playing because of other reasons. I don't think that's up for debate. But my real main takeaway here is kind of, okay, the Chargers are much healthier, obviously, but what Herbert's doing with this offensive line, which is like he's getting pressured a ton. He's scrambling a lot more than in years past. Perhaps that's a function of the fact that he's healthier than he's been the past couple of years. If I scrambles, I don't just mean the runs, but those runs are obviously huge. I mean, how many times last night did we see 4-man rush, can't get home, middle wide open, Herbert runs for 10 yards? We must saw that like 5 or 6 times. But also just like his creation ability from within the pocket is really going to go a long way, I think, in mitigating how kind of bad his offensive line has been. And this is a great offense. They're getting the run game going. The defense is getting healthier. I think that was kind of the main tension point, was just the health of this team. And now they're healthy at full go. They're a really, really good football team.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And so grades are live for this game over at PFF.com. So make sure you guys go get your PFF Plus subscription and also download the PFF Plus app. You can get 25% off on that right now with the promo code PFF NFL Show 25. That gets you access to the PFF Player Props tool, which you're seeing right now, as well as all of the same data trusted by all 32 NFL teams. And a reminder to the chat to drop your favorite prop bets in the chat. And we're going to parlay our favorite ones together at the end and do a little parlay for charity there. Gordon's been taking a hit on those ones, you guys. So make sure you guys throw in some good ones this week for us so Gordon can feed his family. But yeah, so we're going to move into our favorite game market bets of the week. And Judah, we could start with you. It looks like we have a little bit of crossover between Judah's and Ben's, so we can kind of, just tail into this game here. Judah, which side are you on here?
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about, Green Bay, Pittsburgh here. I'm on Green Bay. I think that there are a couple of things. When you take a look at the efficiency numbers, I think turnovers are going a long way in sort of distorting the conversation. Where Green Bay has forced the second fewest turnovers in the NFL this year. Only the Jets have been worse, and Pittsburgh's forced a ton. Now, I think this is less about Pittsburgh, who I think it's not a coincidence that every year they're at the top of the league, even if TJ Watt has taken a step back. But this is a Green Bay team that was forcing a ton of turnovers last year, and we know turnovers are pretty random. I anticipate that sort of regressing. So if you take a look at just like a lot of those numbers, I think this is still a defense that's like top 5 in the NFL. And I'm still discounting the Pittsburgh offense. Everyone's had success against the Cincinnati defense, even more recently. And then that Minnesota game, they could not generate anything outside of a long DK Metcalf pass. This is a team that gets rid of the ball extremely quickly. Green Bay's done a pretty good job on those sorts of plays. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I think this is kind of a story of perfect coverage, if you will. I guess this works both ways, which is that Green Bay, to the point about being a good defense, this is one of the best perfectly covering plays. Aaron Rodgers has been terrible against those. And then Pittsburgh leads the NFL in coverage mistakes. They have the worst perfect coverage rate, and Jordan Love has the highest CPA per play when a defense makes a mistake. I think that there's been a lot of kind of discounting of the Packers, though. They went into Arizona, had a tough game. This happens all the time. We're going through the cycle of the NFL right now where we're like, oh, the Chargers are really, really good. Oh, maybe the Chargers aren't so good. The Chargers are back. We did the same thing with the Chiefs. We've done this with 7 teams so far. Where are we in the Bills cycle right now? It's just these things happen. There's variance. This is a really random game. And if you just look at the fundamentals, I think, of these two teams, and we're talking probabilistically here, of course, the Packers, to me, are far, far better than the Steelers, and I think actually have a pretty good matchup here. I would just not be shocked, if we look back at this game in 5 weeks from now, and we see the kind of divergent paths that I think these teams are taking. I think we will reprice this one very different than just the 3 here.
Yeah, it's interesting because, with how close the Packers are playing a lot of these, this is a pretty significant road favorite right here at -3. And it just shows that the market does see the value in this team, where on paper, they should be able to do everything that they want to do every single week. Sometimes it's just come down to their execution. But I'm right there with you with what we saw from the Steelers last week. It's tough to think that they're going to be able to stick with, covering these guys where there's so many weapons out there for Jordan Love to hit, and he's really just finding a lot of the right guys pretty much all the time. And Ben, I know you have a read on this game too, on the game total. What are you just seeing in this matchup in general?
Yeah, I'm with Judah on Green Bay being able to move the ball and put up points. I like the over 45.5 in this game more than I like any side. And the Green Bay offense versus Pittsburgh defense, it's kind of what we've been talking about, what we talked about after that Bengals game last week. The Steelers' defensive success rate ranks this year in the wins over Minnesota and Cleveland, they were 8th those 2 weeks. All the other weeks combined, they're dead last. If this defense isn't able to capitalize on in those 2 cases specifically, really beat up Minnesota offensive line, really beat up Cleveland offensive line, and get a lot of pressure, they've struggled. Right? And I don't think that's going to be the case this week against Green Bay. I don't think they're going to be able to dominate that offensive line in the same manner they did the Vikings and the Browns. This matchup also sets up pretty well for Jordan Love. I know in prior years we've talked about man coverage kind of giving the Packers some issues, but Jordan Love's the 7th highest graded quarterback this year against man coverage. The Steelers run it second most in the NFL. He's the second in PFF passing grade against the blitz. The Steelers blitz at the 6th highest rate in the league. Jordan Love has done a better job of using his legs in some of those situations and being more willing to scramble. They've also added to the receiving room with Matthew Golden. You have Romeo Doubs, who I think has taken a step this year, specifically against man. So I think the Packers are going to be able to move the ball in Pittsburgh. I do have a little bit more faith in this Steelers offense than you do necessarily, though. Like, yes, the Bengals matchup was really soft. Minnesota and Cleveland, like they hit the big DK pass against Minnesota. They were also able to run the ball really effectively, and maybe that's a function of the Minnesota defense, given what we just saw last night, not being the same. But I think their offense overall was pretty successful in that game against Cleveland the following week. Cleveland obviously wasn't able to do anything on offense, but like I think it was a solid offensive showing, and Aaron Rodgers raises the floor of this offense, in my opinion. Yes, if Green Bay is able to get consistent pressure, it could turn ugly. But Rodgers has done a really good job of getting rid of the ball out quickly. With Darnell Washington on the field, they've gone heavy the last couple weeks. That's been effective for them, both in the run game and in the pass game. They get Calvin Austin back this week, so that helps their receiving core. So I do think the Steelers will be able to at least kind of match a little bit of what the Packers are doing. And anecdotally, like that Bengals game was a game that the Steelers have just lost under Mike Tomlin. Road divisional Thursday night game. Home Sunday night game. It's like this is a spot where it doesn't necessarily make sense, but the Steelers get up for this game, and the Steelers can win this game.
In your Steelers gold, I see.
Yeah.
You know, that you're advocating for the voodoo. I'll say, I think you do make a good point, which is like the kind of counter to the Packers defense is Rodgers getting rid of the ball quicker than anyone else in the NFL. Highest percentage of quick passes, and like you're going to mitigate a pass rush that way. It's what happens if you kind of need to let plays develop longer, which they haven't been in that situation for a while. So again, as always, game script going a long way in kind of trying to understand this matchup.
And the Packers defense, like, yes, it's talented, and yes, it looked great early in the season, but like the last 2 weeks against Arizona and Jacoby Brissett and the Bengals, like they let the Bengals kind of back in that game. Like it hasn't looked dominant, even though I do believe it is a pretty good unit.
Yeah, you know, and I think one of the things that surprised me about that Bengals game was just how good Chase Brown was in that game too, which really worries me when you're going to look at Jacobs on the other side here. And just if they're able to dictate on the ground too, like, and, you know, Jordan Love is dealing with, you know, his ability to beat man coverage, it could be a long day. But, you know, it really does rely on if the Steelers can get really anything going with what they want offensively for sure too. So that's going to definitely be a really interesting matchup. And I'm right there with you guys. I think that those are definitely some good spots there. Green Bay -3.5. I do like that over as well. I would definitely lean towards the Green Bay side on that one too. For myself though, you know, Judah, we talked last week, and you know, I snatched the Atlanta line from you, and it ended up coming back to bite me because for some reason San Francisco just always wins when, frankly, they just shouldn't. But you know, I'm learning from our mistakes there, and you were on Carolina last week, and that one ended up hitting really well. I'm going towards Carolina again this week. I think 7 at home is just too much against a Bills defense that just really hasn't been that solid. And when we see some of the trends with these teams, Carolina has been underdogs every game this season, and they're a solid 5-2 against the spread. That's tied for the NFL's best against the spread record. They're undefeated at home also, 3-0 straight up as dogs. So that's encouraging, where they've been playing really well at home. They beat, that's the same Atlanta team that beat this Bills team. They beat 30-0. So I know that that's not really the exact same. It's always a difference of matchup and schematics and things like that. But I mean, that's definitely an encouraging sign there. And then when we look at the Bills, 2-4 against the spread. They really haven't covered a game since week 2. They're back-to-back home losses as the favorite. and they've just really struggled on the road. 9-11 against the spread over the last 3 seasons. They've struggled as 7-point plus favorites, 7-10 over the last 3 seasons. And then when you add those together as touchdown favorites on the road, they're 1-4 since 2022. So this is really a team that's sort of played to their competition at a lot of turns, and they've had some pretty lofty spreads over the years. So we actually have to go back to week 16 of 2022 for the last time that they found a cover on the road of more than 7 points. And, something that I want to bring up with the Bills, I don't want to call it struggles because they're still a really good team. They're going to be competitive in pretty much every game. But Trevor brought this up during the preview show, and his Buffalo's really good in script, and they're really bad out of script, which has been sort of an issue. And Trevor had some ideas as to why that's the case. And I have another little bit of one too. They're particularly bad closing out halves. In the second and fourth quarter, they're below league average in EPA per play, success rate, yards per play, touchdown drive, third down conversion percentage, you name it. It's pretty much everything. And I think a big reason for that is because they get out of balance. They just get way too far away from the run, where this team is at its best when they keep balance and run the ball. On those in the first quarter and the third quarter, they are top 3 in run rate at 46.3%. That drops almost 10% in the other 2 quarters, in second and fourth. They are 14th in run rate in those 2 quarters. So it's really just been a tough look, and I think that that's actually a good recipe for Carolina to keep this team out of balance and keep this team off script, where, they've been really good against the run. They're 9th in team run defense grade. They're 10th in EPA per rush allowed, and they're 2nd in successful run rate allowed. So I think that when you look at that case, as well as the case of how they can win with their own run game and how they have been winning with their own run game, I think that they can dictate on the ground. They're 3rd in team run blocking grade, 2nd in EPA per rush, and top 5 in successful run percentage and yards before contact per attempt. And I think that last one is going to be very, very important. Buffalo versus the run, when we talk about where they've struggled, they have a lot of really good, solid players up front, and they're getting a little bit healthier. They're getting some players back. Larry Ogunjobi is not quite the run stopper of this defensive line after a pretty tough season last year, but as a whole, they've sort of struggled on the edge there, and Dalton actually brought that up too in the preview show. If you can really run them off the edge, that you're going to have a lot of success. So they're 31st in EPA per rush allowed, 24th in successful run percentage, and 32nd in explosive play rate. That's going to be a huge one because this Panthers team, they've been ripping off some big runs off of some monster gaps when defenses just don't fit very well and they get blown off the ball. And another big one here, 25th in yards before contact per attempt, 1.4 yards. So I think when you match that together with how Carolina is really strong up front and they're really pushing the point, I think that you're going to see a lot of really positive runs in this Panthers offense stay on the field for a long time, keep the Bills off the field, and then force them out of their own run game. And I think that that's going to be the decider in this one. Now, do the Panthers have it in them to really hold, the Bills down in the passing game and not allow them to really press the point if they do have to pass? That's a question for sure. But I think all in all, at +7, this is too many points, and they're going to be able to keep this game pretty close.
Yeah, I agree. Carolina +7 is one of my favorite spread bets of the week, and a lot of it is tied to what Mason was talking about. I think Carolina is going to be able to run the ball effectively against Buffalo. Yes, Buffalo's getting Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi back from suspension. I don't necessarily think those are major needle movers for their run defense. And Carolina's been one of the best rushing teams in the NFL. Right now they have a healthy Rico Dowdle and a healthy Chuba Hubbard. They basically rotated those two guys by drive last week and had some success with it. Dowdle performed better than Hubbard, but I think they're going to be able to have some success on the ground. And honestly, whether it's Andy Dalton, Bryce Young, I don't think it's necessarily a major difference for Carolina. And this is a Buffalo defense that like they can have some success through the air now too. I know Jalen Coker didn't really do anything in his first game back, but you do have another weapon out there. Xavier Legette looked better last week. And then on the other side, Mason called it out. We've talked about the Carolina run defense the past couple weeks. Second in success rate this year. They basically shut down a Cowboys rushing attack that has been very good this season, and that's what Buffalo wants to do. All right, so if you get Josh Allen into more of these obvious passing situations, if you force him to go more downfield, especially, that's when he struggled. That's what we saw last week against Atlanta, where you take away some of the underneath stuff. Atlanta blitzed them super heavily. That's not really what Carolina's going to do. But I think if Buffalo's going to cover this game, they're going to need a really big Josh Allen performance through the air.
It's interesting. I think that all these points are totally right. And I agree kind of on the directional lean. I guess to the other side of this is like, if Josh Allen throws the ball a bunch and the Bills just lean into him, like this is as a terrible pass defense, and Allen is ripe for success. And it's like all of the stuff about the run game on Carolina's side kind of becomes somewhat of a moot point. Like if you're down 14-3 in the first quarter, which is like, it's just an important thing to keep in the back of your mind, of like everything obviously points to like this massive mismatch on the run, but there's also such a huge gap between like the Buffalo offense, and if they just come out throwing, which is an SGP angle I love, then like I think they can have a ton of success, and this game can get kind of out of control. But at the same time, like what I think is most likely to happen is exactly as you guys have outlined.
Yeah, and and I think you're right. You have a really good point there. Is that Carolina's not really going to be able to play in coverage to a high degree that's really going to stop them, especially if the Bills can come out in these 3 tight end sets and really feed the ball through them on. I think it's National Tight Ends Day, isn't it? Is it going to be? So they love their 3 tight end sets anyway, but they're going to come out in them a lot. So if they're really able to dictate, and Carolina hasn't been very good at all in covering tight ends, so that is definitely a situation that you have to watch for. But I think another reason why I'm a little more comfortable in it is because what we've seen in their coverage hasn't really been very good either. We've seen a pretty explosive performances around the board, especially over the last couple weeks. So that's something that's definitely going to be in the back of my mind. I think that, you make a good point. If the game state gets away from Carolina being able to run the ball, they do get into some trouble there. But I think, with Andy Dalton, they're going to be able to pass the ball at least a little bit. Ted McMillan is still obviously really, really good. And, we saw Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette caught all of the balls from Andy Dalton last week. He had like 60 yards. It was incredible. So, breakout for Xavier Legette, just needed Andy Dalton. So, that's going to be something that is worth watching. I think at the end of the day, 7 is just a lot. I think it's going to be a pretty tightly contested game too, but I definitely see what you're saying, Judah. And I know that, Ben, you have a same game parlay angle for this one.
We might as well just jump into it because it's kind of what Judah was hitting at with the Bills passing, except it's not in a runaway Bills win game script. So my same game parlay this week is Josh Allen 300 plus passing yards, Khalil Shakir 8 plus receptions, Panthers plus 3.5. That is 48-1, and I'm leaning into the Bills leaning into the pass here because of the Panthers run defense. Like I said, second in rushing success rate allowed, and it's, to Judah's point, it's a great matchup for Josh Allen. He's second in passing grade for zone. He's third in passing grade from a clean pocket. Carolina's third in zone coverage rate. They have the second lowest pressure rate in the NFL. Like, if Buffalo is passing a lot, Josh Allen should be able to have success in this matchup. And I like Dalton Kincaid call out. I also like Khalil Shakir, hence that leg here. I did receptions instead of yards just because you get a little bit more boost on the odds there because it's not correlated as heavily as the yards is. And I think if Allen's going for 300 plus, probably a high volume game for Shakir, specifically because Shakir has been great against cover 3. Going back to last season, he's 5th in the NFL in target rate against cover 3, 30%. The Panthers run cover 3 at the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. So I think this matchup sets up really well for Shakir to have a high volume, a big receiving game, especially if the Bills are passing more. And then the Panthers kind of bumping that spread down to 3.5. Like I think they can be competitive, even if the Bills come out and have success through the air. Like maybe this is Carolina ripping off explosives in the run game early, because the Bills have given up explosives in general to just being bad against the run, and the Panthers have a very good run game. I also think that there's some scenarios where like the Panthers can match a little bit through the air in this game and cover. Like I just like this Carolina team at home. They're kind of similar to Atlanta. Like I wasn't fully with you guys on Atlanta last week. I thought it was the right side. I didn't bet it because Atlanta lost 30-0 to this Panthers team on the road. Like Atlanta's been one of the more home-sensitive teams in the NFL. I think Carolina's in that boat as well. So I think this is a game where they can keep it close and competitive, and Josh Allen can have a big game in that scenario.
And I played around with an idea of a same game on this one also, but sort of that other angle of if Carolina's able to really dictate on the run. I wanted to get in some. DK was a little bit later to get into some of those tight end props that I really wanted to sort of hit on, but I did play with the idea of a 100-yard rushing day for some backs there, and ultimately came off of it there. But I actually like the angle that you took there as well. I think that one makes
it's so hard to. It's so hard to go heavy on alts for either of these Carolina running backs, just given that it could just be a 50-50 split workload. And then you're just basically trying to guess who breaks off a 40-yard run. And I just didn't want to do that.
Yeah. I mean, Rico. I lean Rico just because he's been so good, and it was a little bit stark last week, but you make a good point, is that literally either of these guys, Chuba or Rico, they could really.
It's a hot hand world.
It's a hot
right?
hand
Like
world. Right.
Guy breaks off 2 rushes. I mean, like Hubbard got the first look for that game, and then he just didn't break anything. And Rico is being Rico.
Yeah, no, I think it's clear to say that Rico has looked really good the last 3 weeks. He probably should be getting more of the carries, but Chuba's like a key guy in that offense, like a locker room guy. Like they're not just going to pull Chuba's carries.
Was it the 200 yards in back-to-back games that gave that one away?
Yeah. I think that one makes it pretty clear.
Walt in the chat, Bryce Young to Mushin Muhammad versus the Bills secondary. And of course, you guys, this is a reminder, drop your favorite prop bets in the chat, and we will parlay them together at the end of the show. All the winnings are going to go to charity. I don't think we've hit one yet, though, you guys. So we need to come in. We need some big picks from you guys in the chat. So make sure you guys holler those ones out.
I would feel better about the Panther spread if they had Nassim Muhammad for this game.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's see. We're going into props. We are going into props. And let's see. Let's start with Ben. Ben, what are you seeing here? What are you liking here?
Yeah, I'm on CJ Stroud's passing over. It's fluctuated a little bit. When I put this in the sheet last night, it was 203.5 passing yards on DK. And look, this number is in like Dylan Gabriel, Marcus Mariota territory. And I know the Texans offense has been rough, and Nico Collins probably not playing, Christian Kirk probably not playing. But I think we were right to be kind of down on the 49ers defense, who played really well against Atlanta on Monday night. But I'm going to kind of fade that, particularly when you look, and their leading pressure getter since Nick Bosa went down in week 3 is Bryce Huff, and he's now out. Right? So where is the pass rush coming for this San Francisco defense? Since week 3, when Bosa went out, they were 28th in pressure rate. Bryce Huff was the only guy on the defense who had more than 11 pressures, and he's not in there anymore. And C.J. Stroud, honestly, with a clean pocket, they've been an above-average passing offense. 7.6 yards per dropback, 12th in the NFL from a clean pocket. When pressured, that drops down to 1.8. I think the only team worse is the Titans. So this is an offense that has been super sensitive to pressure. It's also an offense that can't run the football. Like, they're 31st in rushing success rate this year. The only team worse is the Patriots. Their pass rate over expected has gone up the last couple of weeks. And you put all that together in a matchup against San Francisco where, like, the San Francisco offense with George Kittle back, they should be able to score some points even against a defense as good as Houston. And with this number being as low as it is, like, I have interest in Stroud's over. Like, it's not like the Washington offense without Debo and Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown. Like, they drafted Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel early. Like, they have some talent at wide receiver still. They still have Dalton Schultz. It's not an offense that is completely a passing offense and receiving core that's completely barren of talent. And when Stroud's line is in the territory of, like, these fringe starters and backups, in a game that they probably will need to pass to win, in a game that they have to win, like, they cannot lose this game. It's a spot I'm interested in.
Judah, what do you see on that one?
I can't bet it on the main line. I love the alt, though. I do worry about just like a very slow-paced game. San Francisco, I think, like, even if they play well against the Texans, like, this is not a defense. Like, they're a bottom five team. I see it as just a spot that could be so ugly, but on the flip side, like, there's huge upside, I think. And I totally agree with the points of, like, they drafted some wide receivers and, like, those guys can play. This is not a complete train wreck, kind of outside of Nico Collins, that this is a really bad San Francisco team. They absolutely can put up points. I also still can see this as just a disgusting game where no offense really gets going.
So are you buying into the McCaffrey sort of, his outburst last week with, in Houston, they're 22nd in rushing EPA allowed. What do you think of angles with that? Do you think that they're going to be able to really dictate?
That was the main thing I think overlooked last week. It was like, and I should have known better. Like, when George Kittle comes back, this running offense just gets way more efficient. And they've done nothing throughout the season. And they obviously had a terrific night on Sunday Night Football. I think the Texans are getting a little better on the run defense. The last bunch of weeks have been somewhat better, though they could not tackle Zach Charbonnet on Monday night. Yeah, I do think the Niners are going to be able to have success on the ground. And that's kind of part of the concern here, is that, like, they can absolutely play a ball control type of game. And I think they might, that might be the game plan, certainly against the Houston pass defense, which has been terrific. But if I had to say one thing, it's just, like, George Kittle matters so much to this ground attack. And I don't think that McCaffrey outburst was a coincidence.
And his blocking highlight tape is more fun to watch than his, like, receptions highlight tape. He has so much fun blocking. It's like, how could you not have fun with that guy on the field? Like, just bringing up the energy. Like, that guy brings it. It does make it hard. And, I ate some crow for that one, because I thought that Atlanta was going to be able to just sort of do everything that they wanted on the San Francisco defense, and it just did not turn out that way. And then, it was actually the opposite, is the 49ers were able to just really do whatever they wanted to against Atlanta's blitz packages, and it just didn't end up a good situation there. So that's definitely going to be an interesting one. Judah, we'll stick with you into your prop for the week. I see you have some Drake May love here. I'm loving it. Tell me what you're targeting here.
Drake May over passing yards. Saw this, at least at the time this went the run sheet, at 223.5 yards. Taking the over, I'd be way higher there. I think this is a classic kind of pass funnel spot where Cleveland has been terrific against the run. They've been fine against the pass, but if you kind of take the discrepancy of the pass EPA versus the run EPA, it's the third biggest pass funnel, meaning they're far easier to pass against. And, like, I think that the Cleveland defense is fine. And they're certainly historically under Jim Schwartz had some pretty drastic home road split situations where I'm much more comfortable with this game being played in New England, and this defense has kind of been middle of the pack on the road for years now. But ultimately, like this doesn't. I don't think it matters unless like we're going against a really really elite defense. Like I'm pretty sure I said this on the pod a couple weeks ago of like flag planting. Like I think Drake May is a legitimate MVP candidate, and I think that I mean he leads the league in EPA per play. He's fourth in our kind of raw pass grades. He's been awesome. I don't think there's any matchup that's going to stop him. We can talk about the man zone stuff. We can talk about the fact that Drake May has been able to scramble, which would mitigate a lot of what Cleveland can do on defense. But ultimately, what this comes down to is this is an emerging passer, I think, who's got some of the best deep numbers in the NFL. If you just like, I post these kind of scatter plots all the time on Twitter of different ways of capturing certainly quarterback play. And like in the top right quadrant are the guys who are generally the best. And there is not a single stat, I think, and I post dozens of these where Drake May is just not in that category. He's really an emerging superstar. The Patriots have leaned into him. They don't have much outside of like a random kind of outburst against really bad run defense. They haven't gotten the ground game going. They're leaning into him. They've got some of the higher pass rates in the NFL. Like he should not be priced, I don't think, as kind of like that mid-tier of passing yardage quarterbacks. Like he's going to start getting a ton of volume, a ton of efficiency. A lot of these game scripts haven't allowed him for that, but it's a great matchup. And I think we're just a little bit too low as kind of a general category for May here.
Yeah, I would agree. Ben, do you see anything on that one?
Yeah, the Browns, I talked to the Texans were 31st in rushing success rate. The Patriots were 32nd. So like this is a team that had a little bit more success last week, but in general have really struggled to run the football. It's a really tough matchup against Cleveland to run the football. So Drake May, especially if the Cleveland offense struggles as much as I think they will in this matchup, because it's kind of similar on the other side that New England's been really good at stopping the run. Cleveland wants to run the football. Last week against Miami, they could, and they had a lot of success. If they can't run the football, I think this Cleveland offense is in a spot where it's really going to struggle against a defense like New England. So you get some more short drives. You get Drake May more opportunities. New England can't really run the football effectively. It's kind of all signs point to Drake May clearing this number. He's been great versus man, too. Fourth in the NFL with 9 yards per attempt against man. Cleveland's still a man-heavy defense. He's been great throwing downfield, so you get some of those chunk plays that really help you get to this total. I like this one a lot, too.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think that it's going to be performances like this where he's still slightly underrated that, are like you said, Judah, are going to lead to his MVP potential campaign. And, our producers are going to hate me, but my guys, if we could get the MVP odds up on the screen and just get a little talk going on that, I want to get your guys' take on where you guys see value on this board here. I think that in my opinion, when I look at it, May really does carry a ton of value right now with the fourth best odds for MVP right now, or fourth shortest odds for MVP. It's looking like we got Patrick Mahomes plus 125, Josh Allen plus 360, Baker Mayfield plus 700. So really some potential there. When you guys are shopping these sort of mid-season awards for MVP, what are you sort of looking for, and who's really sticking out to you? Judah, so you were talking about Drake May. I would imagine that would definitely be a flag plant for you at plus 800. Is that something you're still shopping?
Not as much seeing like that. I think there are other better ways of expressing that bet. Meaning, if you think about the things that need to happen for Drake May to win MVP, if you just look at a lot of the Patriots futures, I think it kind of makes a little more sense. But like, I don't hate a little Sam Darnold. Kind of crazy, but like if you want to talk about a team that's got a shot actually at winning the number 1 seed, Darnold has been unbelievably good. I don't hate that as a long shot.
Yeah, and I'll throw Herbert in that boat too. Like they were running the graphics last night. He was leading the NFL in pass attempts and pass yards. The Chargers are 6-2 now. Mm-hmm. Like if they are getting back healthier and they compete for that AFC West, and potentially the Chiefs look awesome, but if they potentially win the AFC West over the Chiefs, and Herbert is putting up the kind of numbers he's been putting up to start the season, 35-1 feels like a good price there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree there. And I mean, you could also talk about it's a little bit more far-fetched because, he's probably more in the running for comeback player of the year. But, Dak Prescott, he's been incredible too. He's been throwing the lights out of the ball. So, that's going to be something that we're going to talk about that one. A little plug. We're going to be talking about some Dak Prescott a little bit later here with my same game parlay angle. But first, we're going to hit my prop bet of the week. And I'm actually loving Devon Achane here at over 4.5 receptions at plus 102. He's missed this line in the last 2 games, but that's actually good news because the market dropped this line a little bit lower, and now it's also plus money. And I think context really matters for that. When they played the Chargers in week 6, it was really about Miami focusing on the run. Achane had 16 rushes, well over his average on the season, and he really gashed them on the ground. They didn't really throw the ball quite as much there. And then when we look at against the Browns last week, I mean, we talked about it. Crazy weather, and he still saw 5 targets. Tua just missed him on some bad balls in the wind, and that's really a situation that makes life tough. I mean, they use him in a lot of unique ways, and Tua has to get him the ball. But with how bad the wind was, and, we've heard the, sort of conversation. I don't want to put too much on the, short, can't see over the line type thing, because he has ways of making it through. There have been short quarterbacks before that, have succeeded, obviously, and he has succeeded in this league too. So I think when we see that, I'm still really high on Achane. He is one of the most dynamic pass-catching backs in the NFL. Mike McDaniel uses him in a ton of creative ways. This is something that we talked about last week when we talked about Bijan Robinson is, get them out in creative spaces, get them in the slot, put them in motion, get them out wide. And that's something that McDaniel has definitely used Achane in. And, we have some here at PFF who have even written really great articles on that, for the health of the Dolphins, maybe moving him out to wide receiver would really be an effective move. I know that the article's probably a few years old now, but it's still an interesting thought process in that fact there. But when we look at just his raw numbers, again, as a receiver, he leads Miami in total targets. He's second in running back receptions behind only Christian McCaffrey. He's targeted on over 23% of his routes, and that jumps up to 26.5 when they're trailing, which if given this line, I think it's about 7.5 right now. I think that's pretty much safe to say that they're going to be trailing at some point in this one. And, that number jumps even higher when Tyreek Hill has been down. I think it's about 27% of his targets he has been getting, 27% of his routes he's been getting targeted when they trail. I think he should be really utilized a lot in the passing game versus Atlanta. And Atlanta hasn't really been tested much against running backs this season. They faced the 4th fewest running back targets this year. And that was until last week, which we just talked about a little bit ago, when CMC really hammered them through the passing game. 7 receptions, 72 yards, and 88.1 receiving grade. And, we had a great PFF insight here with Achane holds the second highest target rate against the blitz, and the Falcons blitz at the second highest rate on pass plays. So I think you're really going to see a lot of usage from this guy in the passing game. I think a lot of it is going to flow through him, and they're similarly going to try to chase down what San Francisco did last week. And I think a big reason why Atlanta hasn't really faced a ton of running back targets is because they haven't really faced a lot of teams that are throwing a ton of screens. And something that Miami obviously does a ton is they throw screens. They throw the most screens in the NFL, 18.5%. And when we talk about Atlanta, they face just over about 10% of their pass attempts were screens. So I think that's a real opportunity there to just sort of feed Achane some targets. And I think 4.5 plus money, that's too low of a number for a guy that's going to be really, very, very well incorporated into this passing offense.
Yeah, I think Atlanta blows out Miami in this game, honestly. Like, I didn't include it, but I like the -7. For the Falcons in this spot, -7.5, whatever it is now. The Dolphins defense cannot stop the run. They've really struggled on underneath passes. Like, they've struggled against running backs out of the backfield receiving. They've struggled against tight ends. Like, I like the Kyle Pitts spot this week on, by the way, National Tight Ends Day, which Mason called out. So Maybe Kyle Pitts, you get an extra bump there. And the Dolphins' offense has really struggled against the blitz, and Atlanta is another defense that has blitzed a lot. The Dolphins are 30th in EPA per play this year against the blitz. All that being said, like, Achane can get 5 catches in a blowout. It might be preferable for the Dolphins to be getting blown out for Achane to get 5 catches. Mason mentioned the target rate against the blitz stat. Darren Waller's also out, which kind of thins the target distribution even more. Like, in terms of viable guys who are actually getting targets, is Jalen Waddle, Achane, and then like Malik Washington catching 3-yard passes 4 times a game. Like, that's it for this Miami offense. So I think it's a pretty good spot for Achane receiving too.
Judah, give me good news. You're in, right? You're
tailing.
No, I think that's the read. Like, they have an extremely narrow target distribution. Like, that's who they're going to be checking it down to.
Love it. You know it's good. You know it's a good day when I got Judah tailing. That's how we know we're in there. All right. So, in a reminder to chat, get us your prop bets for the week, and we will parlay them together for a show parlay. Give us some good ones. We're definitely hoping for another win here, or another win. We're hoping to get on the board here for a win, so definitely make sure you guys are throwing in those prop bets into the chat. Tell us what you're targeting this week. But first, we do have to talk about Fabric by Gerber Life. As a parent, we do everything we can to set our kids up for a successful future, academics, team sports, college admissions. But what about getting started financially when they're out on their own? Fabric makes it easy for you to set up an investment account for your child now that grows with them and helps prepare for their financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With the Kids Investment Account by Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Funds can be used for nearly anything benefiting your kid, from tuition and books to summer camps and after-school activities. And when they're adults, they can use the funds for their first home, a new car, or even to start a business. It's all online, and setting up an account could take just 5 minutes. Get started investing with as little as $1 a day, then manage your child's account and monitor their investments right from your phone. There's no contribution limits, multiple tax advantages, and they're SIPC insured up to $500,000 plus. No commission fees and just a low flat monthly maintenance fee. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. Portfolios managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors, Inc. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. Learn more at meetfabric.com. All right, boys. We're headed on to same game parlays here. We've got some good ones. Ben, we talked a little about yours already here. Remind us, you're on the Bills passing game. We got Josh Allen, 300-plus passing yards. Khalil Shakir, 8-plus receptions. And the Panthers to cover plus 3.5. That's 48-1. So make sure you guys are tailing that one at home. And we will jump into Judah. Judah, I love your angle here for this one as well. Tell us what you're targeting for your same game parlay. And for anybody who doesn't know, Judah is a same game parlay master. He writes up a bunch of these every single week over at PFF.com. So make sure you're going to check out all of Judah's work over there. Check out everything Ben does here too. And I dabble a little bit as well here. So make sure you tap in over at PFF.com and check out all of the written work there. But Judah, tell us what angle you're tailing here.
Yeah, I'm going to take a kind of Chicago passing game through Roma Dunze and a big Chicago upset angle. It's Williams 300, a Dunze 100, and Chicago to go minus 3.5 at 55-1. Now, I think there are, of course, some concerns namely that Chicago has been somewhat run heavy. Baltimore is getting a little bit healthier on defense, but this is also on the Odunze front here. This is a Baltimore team that matches up absolutely perfectly for him. It's a team that plays a ton of single high, a ton of man coverage. He's absolutely cooked in both of those scenarios, both from a perspective of targets on his own team, where he's about 28% and 32% respectively against single high and man coverage, and a guy who is the top the NFL in yards per route run, PFF separation. The guy's been an absolute stud against single high and man, and that is also the type of coverage where you win downfield. Right, a lot of these single high targets come as explosive plays. Now, the Baltimore defense also, obviously, they're dealing with a ton of injuries. They have no defensive line right now. I mean, they traded Adafo away. Like, there's nothing, I think, to stand in the way of a pass rush, which has kind of been Caleb Williams. Somewhat of has given him some struggles, and he can create his own pressure, of course. But that's also gotten a little bit better this year. I think very quietly. It's not been as bad as years past. And you just look at this, I think this is an extremely overrated Ravens defense for the most part. Obviously, they got eviscerated by the Lions on that. I can't remember if it was Monday Night Football game. But outside of that, the run defense has been pretty solid so far this season. And the Bears have been extremely run heavy the entire season. Caleb Williams has had a couple of kind of somewhat spiked games, and all of those, I think, were on low attempts. If we see a spot where it's kind of a little bit more like 30, 33, 35 attempts, and again, this is a parlay. There's no specific reason why, outside of just like random game script, he will get there, but also we shouldn't be this positive of the fact that, like, because he hasn't done it in the past, therefore he won't do it again. And it's really just like, if this team's going to throw a bunch, I think it's going to flow through Dunze. I think it comes in a game script in which they're actually winning, and the matchup certainly kind of stands out for Dunze.
Yeah, and he's been getting a ton of targets. And you mentioned that Detroit game. He had 128, 10 targets, 7 receptions, 2 touchdowns. So, and he's had some calls come back that would have been other massive games. So I'm with you there. He could explode.
Yeah, that Detroit team, especially at the time before a lot of their injuries, they were like leading the NFL in man coverage. They were second in single high rate. Like, that is the spot.
Yeah, definitely. Ben, what do you see on that one?
Yeah, I think what Williams has struggled with is kind of hitting those windows over the middle against zone, right? So if it's more man coverage, I tend to agree with you. Like, my biggest concern you spoke to, like, my biggest concern is that Chicago just runs the ball too much for this to hit. Their run rate has gone up a little bit the last few weeks even, but like that game against Dallas, it was explosives where he almost hit 300, right? It was the flea flicker to Burden. It was big plays downfield to Odunze. So the pressure point, I think, is key too. Like, since week 4, the Ravens have a 22% pressure rate. That's not just last in the NFL. It's like last by a decent amount. And Williams has big, clean pressure splits. Clean pocket, 8.4 yards per attempt, 108.1 passer rating. Pressured, 4.8 yards per attempt, 56.8 passer rating. So if the Ravens aren't able to generate pressure, and Williams is getting more of those man coverage looks against the Ravens secondary that, yes, is a little bit healthier now, but wasn't necessarily great even when they were healthy at the beginning of the season. Like, I think there's still some weak points that you can attack on the secondary. As at 55-1, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, and you guys did bring up the running game too. It's interesting because one of the big surprises for me with this Bears offense has been DeAndre Swift over the last 2 weeks. 108 last week, 108 2 weeks ago, 124 last week. I mean, he's really been ripping them off. We know how Ben Johnson likes to sort of facilitate his offense through the running game. And, when we've talked about the Ravens, they're bottom 5 in EPA per rush, and that's definitely going to be a big, turning point for that game. But it's like you said, this Ravens team has really been getting beat in a lot of ways, except for when I bet the Rams against them, obviously, because that's just the way that it goes, I guess.
The Rams still covered.
The Rams still did cover. But yeah, so I mean, that's definitely going to be something, but that could also, in a way, play into where they want to attack, where they can get some of those explosive off of like play action and things like that. It'll definitely be an interesting matchup, but I definitely see the angle that you guys are playing at that one, Judah. And I agree. I think this is a matchup that is sort of poised for them to be able to push the ball down the field and explode.
On the run game, you mentioned Swift. I think they've done a better job the last couple weeks of kind of tailoring the run game more to Swift. If you're forcing Swift to like make reads on the interior, that's not his game. Like, they've given him more just like, here's a hole on the outside, hit it. You're faster and more athletic than a lot of these guys, which is true. I think the vision stuff, they've kind of taken that a little bit more out of the equation the last couple of weeks and just let him be an athlete on the perimeter, and their run game has improved because of it.
Yeah, and I think they've been climbing a little bit in run blocking grade too as well. I could be wrong there, but they're at 13th right now in overall run blocking grade, so it's definitely starting to come together a little bit for them, for sure. All right, is it time for my parlay, you guys? You guys ready for this one? You know we weren't going to make it out of here without talking about the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos. You guys, how about that win last week? It was a big one.
It was certainly something. We can say that.
You know, it's funny because Trevor told the story about we were watching it here in the office, and I literally, when they got down into field goal range on that last play, I literally just let out like a yelp, like ah! Like I didn't have any words. My blood pressure can't take types of matchups like that, and we're gonna get another one this week. I feel like, because we have a lot of shootout potential in this one, and I like. I'm just calling this one the shootout parlay, you guys. You're going to have to bear with me here. I've got Dak Prescott over 300 passing yards. I've got CeeDee Lamb over 100 receiving yards. Bo Nix and Cortland Sutton, we're doing the same thing. It's plus 5,500, 55 to 1 here. And I guess we'll just start off with Dak and CeeDee, because it's interesting when we look at this matchup, because obviously it's a really good defense in Denver and it's an explosive offense in Dallas. And when we look at sort of the other side, it's a good offense when things are clicking in Denver, but it's just the consistency of getting there hasn't been the case, but it's been a fairly bad defense in Dallas. So it is one of these sort of ebb and flow, give and take things, but I think what we're actually going to see is some potential for points. I talked about betting the over early in the week when it opened at about 48.5, and now it's up to, I think, about 50 and a half points. So that's definitely something that's risen over the week. And when we just talk about Dak and CeeDee, Dak is just absolutely lethal against the things that Denver's defense does well. Denver, highest pressure rate in the NFL. Dak, highest passing grade versus pressure. Denver, top 5 in single high coverage rate. Dak, top 5 in passing grade versus single high. So that's something that's definitely going to be watching for. If Denver wants to really slow down this offense, they're going to have to do some things and throw some curveballs to Dak Prescott, because if you just sit back and play the things that he wants you to play, and he can get up there and be in the driver's seat and really dictate this game where he wants to go with the ball, it could be a long day for them. And Denver's actually allowed quite a bit of production to quarterbacks. When we look back, the only quarterbacks to not go over 280 were Justin Fields, Jake Browning, and Cam Ward. And I mean, that's really just the list of guys that you wouldn't expect to go over, a big passing day. Pretty much every other quality quarterback they face has had solid passing days against them. And when we talk about CeeDee, he came back and didn't miss a beat. 110 yards again. He's had 110 in all 3 games this season. And Denver has struggled to cover guys out of slot alignments. And so when we talk about that, I think you're going to see a lot of CeeDee in the slot to take advantage of that. When we talk about Denver's struggles there, 27th in slot coverage grade, 27th in EPA per target, 28th in yards per reception. So I think that this is one of those days where they're really going to have to dedicate a lot of attention to CeeDee Lamb, and I still don't think it will be enough. I think he's going to get his and be able to accommodate, because they have a lot of weapons. They have Jake Ferguson, who is another, line that I'm in on over there. They've really struggled to cover tight ends. You also have Pickens on the outside, and I think that this target share can be pretty spread out, but I also think that you're going to get a lot of CeeDee Lamb, and he's definitely going to get his against a struggle in the slot there. And then when we talk about Bo and Cortland, we talked about Bo struggles with consistency, but when it clicks, he just sort of figures it out. When they don't throw all these complementary pieces of the offense, when they really just run the offense, let him drop back, he gets his footwork under him, and he can deliver the ball, like they play decently well. He's only has 300-yard games this season, and that was versus the Bengals, but debatably, this Dallas secondary has been worse than that Bengals secondary. I mean, in a lot of metrics here, 31st in EPA per dropback allowed, 28th in successful pass rate, and 30th in yards per attempt at 8.14. That's a big number right there. I mean, what we've seen is that he really struggled early on in the year. And I know we got some flack for, Bo Nix, lowest graded passer in the NFL over the first 2 weeks. But over the last 4 games, he's been really good. He's been much improved. He has a top 10 passing grade over that span, 77.7. And Denver is 6th in pass play percentage in one-score games. It's something that we've talked about quite a bit on this show. I know Judas mentioned it a lot. This is a pass-heavy team. They really do love to pass the ball. And when we see where they get that ball to, a lot of times it's been Cortland Sutton on the outside there. When things get iffy, that's the guy who he looks for. And we saw that last week when they really needed points. They hit 33 in the fourth quarter, which was an incredible. I've never seen a game like that ever, to go into the game with 0 points and then have 33 and win. And this guy, Cortland Sutton, is a big reason why. 80 or more yards in 4 of the last 5. And Dallas, first wide alignments, they really struggled. They're bottom 5 in coverage grade, yards per coverage target, passer rating, open target percentage, percentage of receptions to go over 15 yards, like you name it, they're really letting it up, still having some injuries on the outside there. So this is one that's going to be on red zone a lot, I feel like, and we're going to see a lot of points and a lot of production in this one. What are you seeing on this one, Ben?
Yeah, the CD stuff I like, specifically because I think Dallas does a really good job of moving CeeDee Lamb around. So it's hard to, I don't think we're going to see a Surtain shadow on CD because he's in the slot. Yeah. He's on the left side of the formation. He's on the right side of the formation. It's much easier for Denver to just say, Surtain, take care of Pickens in this game. So from that perspective, I do like Lamb. And it sets up as a game where Nix has a chance to throw a lot of yards. And I bet Nix is regular over already. I just get a little bit nervous with what we've seen from Bo Nix. He's one of 4 quarterbacks in the NFL this year with an uncatchable pass rate greater than 50% on throws 15-plus yards downfield. And a lot of these times when he's taking shots, he's just not giving his guys a chance. Yes, I can see a scenario where this happens. Any game Dallas plays in has a chance to shoot out if the other offense is competent, right? And I think this is a tough matchup against Denver, but I have enough faith in Dallas right now to kind of think that good offense beats good defense, and that from that perspective, I think Dallas can have success. I'm more nervous on the Broncos being able to match.
Yeah, and and one thing that I do want to know is Denver's defensive reputation, while last year it was sort of all around, right? They were great in coverage, they were great rushing the passer, they were really good defending the run. In this year, it's sort of moved to just the front 7. The front has played really well. They're pressuring really well. They're stopping the run. It's been coverage on the back end that has been sort of iffy, which is where I think that it just poses well for a guy like Dak and, like you said, like CD, who's going to be moving around to really be efficient and play well. I definitely agree with what you're saying. It's interesting because Bo Nix is really a clinic on coaching and coaching the guy's bad habits out of him, where footwork at times is just really off and really weird. There's times where he's sort of throwing off platform when he really doesn't need to. He threw a screen last week off of a back foot that he just did not need to throw, and just set, plant, deliver the ball. And I think when he got pressed last week and threw a lot better balls, it was because he felt like he had to hit his back foot, throw the ball, because he couldn't really mess around with that Giants pass rush there. So I think, not quite the same situation. Dallas doesn't have any guys that are going to really, push the point rushing the passer, but hopefully he doesn't really get in his own head and start throwing more off-platform stuff. When he stays within rhythm and within schedule, he can be a solid quarterback. And that's where you've seen those accuracy numbers increase. But it's definitely, like you said, inaccuracy, downfield, those things have been a problem. And hopefully he's going to get a lot of wide open guys. That's not really the case. And that's also another reason why I do like Cortland here as sort of a contested catch guy who can go up over the top and really, win balls like that. So that is definitely something that's going to be able to watch for, but that is why it's a bit of a further stretch. Judah, what are you seeing on the Cowboys and Broncos?
Yeah, I'm with Ben here. I think almost fully. I do think this is a Cowboys offense that's been kind of dominant, and good offense, I think, beats the good defense here. And no matter how you slice it, Dak's been terrific in any such way. I also I have concerns with Bo Nix, both because the matchup is great, but if you're not delivering catchable passes, that's a major problem. And if you just look at where he's had a lot of his success, it's been against man coverage teams, and this is not a Dallas team which plays any man coverage. They're number one in zone. He's like 9th in EPA per play against man. He's like 24th against zone. I just have my concerns. It's not his skill set. His skill set is not finding holes in zones. We talked about like Jaden Daniels last week, who's so good at being able to throw to a location, not a man. And that just kind of gives me a bunch of pause. In addition to the fact that like even if Dak Prescott's efficient, this is still a pretty going to Denver is never an easy matchup, no matter how good the Dallas offense is. And I think they're right up there with the Chiefs and Colts right now as the best in the league. That I have some kind of game script concerns as well for both of these guys to go. But, I mean, we saw it last week. It is certainly a viable path.
If he could just put up 192 yards like he did every quarter in that fourth quarter, we'll be A-okay.
Yeah, to be clear, I think whatever his regular number is, 233. I like the over on that. Just from a
that also they Dallas's run game's not so good. I don't know. I just think there are a lot of paths for this game. I do really like Dallas. They I think they're probably my number one alts play. But it's just not. None of the stuff I think in the medians is particularly interesting.
No. Since I already hit my SGP, I'll throw out a bonus square parlay that involves a player in this game, and that's the National Tight End Day touchdown parlay. So we got Jake Ferguson, who I do like the matchup against Denver, and Ferguson's going to get targets kind of regardless of who they're playing. Pitts, who I talked about, I think the Falcons are going to be in Dolphins territory a lot. Good matchup against the tight end. And George Kittle, who is basically the founder of Tight Ends Day. Also, interesting stat I found from Joel Smith on Yahoo. So Kittle has had 6 games where he has had either 0 or 1 reception since 2021. The following game, he's averaged 21.8 PPR points per game. So, on National Tight Ends Day, in a game after he did nothing, that's 20-1 parlaying those 3 guys together. I know it's square, but it's something I'm going to have for fun this weekend.
I like it. You guys heard it here first. National Tight Ends Day parlays are cooking. And, of course, you guys, last call to get your props, your favorite props of the week in the chat. It looks like we have a couple already. Jamar Chase, anytime touchdown, gonna feast with Sauce out. And Tyler, how do we feel about Spencer Rattler over 210 passing yards at home? He's been doing pretty well. Ben, what do you make of the Saints home road splits? I know Dalton talked about that on the preview show. A pretty glaring difference there for how Spencer Rattler's played. Are you liking him at 210.5?
Yeah, it's the whole NFC South minus Tampa. Maybe we talked about the Panthers and the Falcons. The Saints in that boat too. I was kind of on the Saints last week against Chicago. Did not go well at all. Rattler did not play a great game, but I think in general, Rattler's been pretty good this year. Also, PFF key insight for him this week. I believe it was 3rd in passing grade against the blitz. Obviously, something he's going to see a lot of against Tampa Bay. So I tend to lean with the over there as well.
Yep, I like it. Book it. Exploiting the blitz is going to be good. And if you guys don't have it already, make sure you guys go get your subscription to PFF Plus. Get all of the data that's trusted by all 32 NFL teams, as well as access to the PFF Plus app, where you can get the PFF Player Prop tool, which you're looking at right now here. It has a lot of great insights, data right at your fingertips. So make sure you guys go download that, and you can get 25% off of that right now with promo code PFF NFL Show 25. And yeah, boys, I think that about does it. It's been a good show. We're locked and loaded for week 8. Good luck to everybody out there. For Ben Linsey, for Judah Fort Gang, I've been Mason Cameron, and we'll see you guys next week.